So the news sources too. They recorded how their roles, collusions with all kinds of natures of identity theft, fraud, slanders, and people forced to speak through others relative to where and to how all natures of investigations investigated in their campuses are being and haven't been used remotely, criminally, foreign influence, tactically, delusions, raw, collusion slash S with all natures of crime scenes and next to them since founding. That's why and how they haven't put properly. That's part of the reasons why and how they haven't put properly what our founders communicated about Webb House, now renamed the Webb Stevens Museum. Still, with other communicated for our founders than they communicated to have communicated for those founding locations and their roles with James Madison's plane, and why and how George Washington had to counter extort there. That's we're supposed to understand why there's a witch trials place next to that founding location too, for reasons other. Even if the witch trials were totally made up, there were slavery laws entrenched. There had been sustained breaching method laws and collusions with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and terrorists too, against Native Americans, against colonists sickly distinctly, but sickly non-distinctly too. No one wanted it. But even though it was against the laws for everyone intercollege, there was slavery entrenched even against our own black people's rights of eyes. Northern colonies and southern colonies more than 13. Then James Madison's plan came about. They had to still leave slavery entrenched and hide their actual roles to go after it completely. James Madison's plan caused the Civil War. You guys are valuing, so you're a certain type of victim slash hyper victim, valuing other things, others ourselves, having been blamed for things our founders communicate for us to blame on the human factor nature breaching method that reassigned what black people's rights of eyes communicate. That had northern colonies and southern colonies sickly distinctly the possessions of internationally monitored conversations over overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and terrorists at the same time. And then America's founders were born. Already roles with had been with it since semi-ancient times, since before modern religious messengers were born, since before modern countries, and right through modern foundings. Right through America's founding, slavery was entrenched, northern colonies, southern colonies, because it was a breaching method entrenched. That worse than altogether, criminal enterprises, private ones, terrorists, and the differences of the guilt with that or three branches of government. On and off the Connecticut judicial branch offices and corrections offices, in conjunction to the state judicial branch offices, all along Route 3, are people that have been used by investigators since they were kids to put fake ties, fake natures of ties to me, and with people all along Route 3, in conjunction to it, like the state judicial branch offices that are further involved with WFSB, put me in fake conversations with themselves. That they're in Rocky Hill, Connecticut. They have roles right with the town lines too. Rocky Hill, Wethersfield, Hartford. In other words, with the same names involved further with child abusers, leaders of kids years apart. And they had roles with the ones who were abused by one of them years ago or more years ago. As the ones that forced the principal, I still didn't get responded to because there were more roles with it. They changed and faked what I caught them doing and didn't communicate when they do tricks like making the people call you back a bunch of times and saying all kinds of fake and change things and confessing and demonstrating things, and you never get to speak. And then they just put fake transcripts and, and hide that. With a principal child abuser leader for kids proven that they're forcing more then and now. They were confessing this in the open, and they're lying about when they use the words privacy, and they're using the truth for lies there. In other words, increasingly modern pastry, you guys have obligations. A whole bunch of people tied to it. Jonathan Maiano are involved with sexual and medical offenders of kids, including with women judges at New Britain Superior Court, involved with sequence shifts and falsified police reports with sexual and medical offenders of kids, including medical ones, involved with this Maiano family. And with these sources of News Nation, like a Sammy the Bull, is increasingly involved with other people with the federal news that's building upon World Trade Center predicate acts that WFSB, Connecticut's Channel 3 News had. These are also people, the sources of WTNH, have roles, a whole bunch of rackets and child offenders with the state judicial branch offices and corrections offices, and more then and now with the principal child abuser and their roles, their careers with the children, used criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw, pretending passions. And see, there are people increasingly pretending passions and emotions with people, and because some investigators, some judges, their family members told them to do things, or they knew that people were going to be there and they're going to see things and they're acting towards that. A breaching method shows them they need to do those things. When did they have integrity? When could they afford to have discerned honestly what witch trials are about? You don't leave out what the slavery was about. You don't leave out, well, how to an extent we know it was about fakeness. In other words, and about fake news has multi-front collusion /S. They have identity theft, fraud, slanders with a whole bunch of people tied to a intercultural and intracultural. There are people with the name Kerr that brought up the name Sammy Bull and John Gotti and their roles with the military. There are proofs that they have a Michael Francis or whatever it is. I don't know his name. I think it's a Michael Francis. He's also involved with Sammy the Bull and social media and with the news that is faking evidences. These are also names that have collusions with the World Trade Center attackers, with their extended family members, like with the name Scalora. Wethersfield police increasingly have people named Scalora involved with falsified police reports since I was a kid, and their roles with names with home break-ins in my area, and people with different last names that say they're their cousins, who are recorded further with sexual and medical offenders of kids and digital crimes with kids, and with the police forms and medical with the campuses further, with the security with the campuses. Increasingly, people with the state corrections officers, judicial branch officers too, have roles with people tied to them. Like a Whiting Forensics has a Joshua Schumack, a Josh Julian, and a Joshua Stryker, involved with a whole bunch of people intercities, and on the Facebook page of a principal sex offender, also with people with the name O'Neill with West Hartford campuses and with fire campuses families. These are not legitimate roles with their family members, with their positions, and like with Hartford Hospital and the businesses and houses next to it, involved increasingly with people planting evidence on my street from other areas, with retired police chiefs too in their intimate ties, involved with identity theft, fraud, slander. Get me off the fake conversations of Channel 3 News, involved with these people. And they're speaking about they're trying to plant evidences. Oh, look how many times I spoke against child abuse. They're involved with child abuse with the Sammy the Bull and News Nation sources regarding the racketeering influence. They have roles with all sides of criminal and civil cases. There are proofs still with the Puff Daddy case. The prosecutors too is involved with the FBI with them, with sequence chefs, all sides of criminal civil cases. The court's names, the state of Connecticut judicial branch offices and corrections offices is also involved interstates with people, a bunch of people from Washington, D.C., involved with predicate acts with facts at the campuses I went, and with names next to it involved increasingly, as ones that are also involved with planting evidence on all sides of my house, where and how investigators are used in relative ways recorded. But see, this requires mandated law to discern things that are recorded and haven't been covered up by people who are speaking about which documents, what's written, that's fake. They put falsified police reports and make confessions tied to that. They're making confessions to the breaching method the same way they make them to us. The breaching method, they had confessions made to it by countries A through Z's members before religious messages were even born. Before the church had roles with confessions, the breaching method had people making confessions relative to where and how nature has been demonstrated. We have been using systems tactical ulterior from where and how it uses, how we are a human species body, individual body, of individual bodies with all group differences generated to show us the identity to an extent, the identity of value/value progression that is all things at the same time while not. But anyway, here or as it forced here, where anyway. As Earth's special difference, as our own special difference, was as demonstrated to us by nature. It is important not to search my words for excuses or tricks to pretend not to understand what I said. Get me off the fake conversations with WFSB. These are people involved with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, increasingly involved with people who went to my grammar school and middle school, who put me in fake ties, fake news. I never even saw them around the middle school. Increasingly, they have roles of whiting forensics with identity theft, fraud, slanders, and sexual and medical offenders of kids, as people with men and women involved with it. And it's between campuses. This is a sustained abuse and uses of themselves, their difference and their kids' differences as adult and kid too. Maturity, immaturity. They can't speak on it legitimately because they came through sick campuses. Forgiveness is to not leave out the breaching method or to get it wrong. A breaching method reassigned black people's rights of eyes. We're gonna deal with this. You guys have to follow mandated law. Please, News Nation, get them on paper, one name and sequence with the Wethersfield Police Force. You can switch your names, and with these people, like there's an Officer Jerry Miller further with digital crimes, with a Kerr family per him, and the Kerr family years ago they sought me out to record, confess, demonstrate, confirm. They've been planting evidences on all sides of a park, and a whole bunch of people tied to the former mayors involved with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and with the names on my street, O'Brien. The O'Briens are gone, but they're involved still increasingly with wire crimes and falsified police reports, with a Collo house and a Smith house, also with foreign and domestic families, with the Wethersfield town offices and the judicial branch offices and the corrections offices, and their roles in Wethersfield police phones families, with the World Trade Center attack interstates and names at the World Trade Center and spots next to it, including the court next to it. Increasingly, people with New York City. There's a Fred Grisey also involved with these overt criminal enterprises with the intelligence where they're not legitimately rolled. They're collusions with a whole bunch of different nations with sexual and medical offenders of kids. I don't even know all their names. Fred Grisey is one of the ones who sought me out from other areas to make confessions and demonstrations to me alone. Timing when I was going to be outside. They've been doing this. I realized this too late. But I mean, I realized it not too late. But before the World Trade Center attack, former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, I didn't know his name, is one of the names involved as an adult, who was involved with West Hartford locations and New Britain locations, and Wethersfield, on off the Wethersfield Judicial Branch Office and Corrections offices, with a whole bunch of people increasingly involved with like those spots, including a body dumping spot of a serial killer, even if that was made up. That guy and that spot and their narratives regarding the investigators with that, they had collusions with those spots and those names next to the body dumping spot. And people involved with that, their narratives regarding the blue van. And there are other body dumping spots and names next to them, like people in Hartford involved with the two different reported body dumping spots of Billy Grasso, associated with people on off the state judicial branch offices, increasingly planting collusions with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and putting fake things in databases behind people's backs. Also, as there are proofs that the educators will tell you this themselves. You know, the only one, when I was a sophomore, my algebra class teacher, she has some Jew syntax, and she repeated some sexual things about a Jewish neighbor of mine, a little girl. I don't even know her name. I believe her name is Janine. In other words, that's increasingly getting brought up. And some guys built my porch. In other words, they're also involved with some investigators at fire departments. Fire departments have been coming on my house since before my new neighbors lived there. planting fake and changed evidences when they record what happens with instances as their roles with a whole bunch of different countries, with the campuses putting predicate acts with facts and databases, fake ties and fake natures of ties between people, and their roles with investigators influencing them to that such. They don't even know about it to an extent themselves, so they're leaking and they're trying to say, "Well, look, I didn't know about it." They know because they didn't know what's going to come up. I told you guys it's going to come up. You got to get them on paper, one name and sequence. You know, they don't even know whether they're making confessions now, because people only can speak as fakes. That's why we have to address. They don't even know it to themselves because their delusions are raw too. Because the experts on that have been involved with all kinds of natures of organized crime. In other words, get them on paper, please. Tulsi Gabbard, News Nation, get me off of fake. Please do what's right and get them addressed. WFSB, Connecticut's Channel 3 News. Get me off fake conversations with them and with others. And about the World Trade Center attack. And what I caught them recorded, confess, demonstrate, confirm while they're pretending other. They confess a whole bunch of things when they're touching someone in a fake conversations with themselves. Get this Roger Suzanne away from the kids and get his kid. You know, they should make him do her or him do homeschool with these predators. Playing games with overt criminal enterprise, private ones, and the kids are prosecutors and judges too. They should make them do homeschool. They're predators with the schools. I had to get them off on campus. I want a response from the medical too. This Leahy family, big conversation with me. And what are they doing with the Lombardos and with these people with the Walters? There are more people with the name Walters that sought me out as strangers to pretend other. As a kid, now as an adult, they tried to make a fake exception as an adult. They recorded that in the pretending other, like with the wedding with Chris Walters. He's going to tell you too. He made confessions about his roles with spots on Walker Hill Road and next to the community center. Dear God, the Hyde plot. Get them on paper with the Wethersfield Police and the Britain Superior Court. No!